Shotgun to shotgun.
Greetings, family. African greetings, I should say. Machi, Alafia, Hotep, Jumbo. If there's someone in the audience, and Mama Ra, can you hear me? If there's someone in the audience that's older than 58, may I have permission to speak? I'll take that as a yes. I may be the oldest in the room. Okay, I want to begin by saying,
yes.
I am, oh, wonderful. There are children in the room. Give thanks. I was hoping there would be children. My name is Ya Mawusi Baruti. I am co-founder of Sankofan Institute. I'm co-founder along with my husband, Mwalamu Baruti, and Sankofan Institute. It is our African-centered homeschool tutorial program, and we just started our 22nd school year this week, yes. And we're also co-founders of Sankofan House, which is our African-centered publishing company, where we publish his books, but we also have videos of lectures and classes as well, even complementarity, a couple of complementarity conferences. Okay, I'll begin by also giving people, in case someone isn't on the whole time, my contact info, and it's my name, Ya Baruti, which is on the screen at yahoo.com, but I'm also on Facebook. So ways of contacting me, and we were told to do that. And also, we were told to let people know, as an African-centered program, small program, we always appreciate any donations, and people can donate to our PayPal account, which is at yabaruti@yahoo. It's the same as my contact email, as well as Cash App, where our tag is $Ya M as in man Baruti. Right, give thanks. Okay, I chose a topic that someone came up with, which was a wonderful topic. I had some options, and my topic for today is a Sankofan view to find our way home. Okay, and I see probably, and I know some of you in the audience that you already know, so I'll be perhaps preaching to the choir, but give thanks. Repetition is wonderful, because I can foresee a day for those of us who remain in this country. We're living in a growing military police state. So the truth that we look for at some point in this country may become illegal. You know, in a police state, it would be considered hate speech or for whatever. But so repetition is good. And in fact, we want our children to know things. For example, I grew up in a very religious family, as many people my age in this country. And so even though I read the Bible, went to Sunday school, went to church regularly, but it was the repetition of sayings and scriptures and proverbs that many years since my being a regular churchgoer, or, you know, that being my life, those things I still remember. And our wisdom, we need to have our books as if we can and as long as we can, but more importantly, we need the information to be within us. Okay, I want to start by saying I'm so honored to be a part of this celebration. And so definitely am thankful to Brother Alias, Brother Bomani, and United Front. This is so wonderful that, as it said, you know, you don't celebrate 100-year anniversary, a centennial every year. So it is important that we do so. And we talk all the time about honoring our ancestors, but this indeed is showing honor and not just to say it in words. So of course we honor Nana Marcus Mosiah Garvey, but also let's remember his complement. And we know the importance of complementarity that, well, from the African perspective, all your accomplishments, you do not accomplish things individually. So if you're in a marriage, unless you have a spouse who's actively fighting against what you're trying to do, if they are supportive, then they are a part of your accomplishments. So definitely want to honor Nana Amy Jacques Garvey as well, who said, you know, stand on your own two black feet and fight like hell for your place in this world. So she was also very much clear on the problems we're dealing with and our need for sovereignty. So honor them both. Models to us a love of Africa that has been passed down. So the many Garveyites, and of course with the members throughout the world, you know, they showed us a love of Africa, Pan-Africanism, that we're all sisters and brothers all over the world. Of course, our celebration of the RBG, and I'm trying to represent today green with a red and black necklace. So I'm representing the colors today, especially for this anniversary. The importance of repatriation, which is still a need 100 years later, but which will always be a need. But even though they did not repatriate, and is someone else admitting people, or am I supposed to admit people? Okay, somebody's doing it. Okay. But what they did do, which were the steps that should precede our repatriation. And the reality is there are millions of us throughout the diaspora, and it is unlikely that every single African in the diaspora will repatriate, but whether we physically repatriate, what the model they showed us, we need to mentally, emotionally, and spiritually return. Because just to repatriate without that mental, spiritual, and emotional return, we go to the motherland and take our issues, and they already have issues themselves there. But I'll talk more about that. So a question is, if this discussion is about returning to the motherland, well, why is it that we need to return? And so my focus will be on us, but just a quick intro as little reminders as I preach to the choir, why do we need to return? Because the land itself here, where we are in other places in the diaspora, the land isn't the issue. It's the oppression that we experience because we're dominated by Euro culture and just some of the issues we're having in this madness, the addictions that we have, the sexual insanity, the utter disrespect for people, nature, the spiritual realm, Western culture. There are no boundaries, and which is what they like. So you have utter chaos and disorder. Anything goes. xenophobia, a fear and hatred of others. Okay, but of course they're filled with hatred. So they even hate themselves, by the way. So that's not difficult to understand. Um, Baba Leonard Jeffries talks about, you can put it, we can summarize it with the 3Ds. They're about death, domination, and destruction. And when you look at their story from the beginning till today, and moving forward, because as Mama Marimba says, that's a part of their silly. So that's in their essence, that's who they are. So all of the madness, which is madness for us because we have African spirits, that's just them being themselves. The materialism. So you focus on things versus people. Individualism. It's all about me. They have a God vying complex. They want to be God. So they're trying to create babies and allow men to have babies, going against the natural order that is of our culture. They're anti-nature. They are very aggressive. They're violent. They're very competitive. They are liars. They are thieves. Just all of the negatives, the things that in our culture that we preach against, and everything antithetical of righteousness, and you would have summarized it. Now, Mama Marimba Ani, of course, has done that. She's picked them apart in her book, Urugu, what is the subtitle? An African-Centered Critique of Euro Culture and Behavior. Okay. A couple of novels that two of my favorite novels that allows us to see in fictional form, but fiction reflects reality. So Chinua Achebe's Things Fall Apart. And in fact, the first time I read that book, it was actually, I was scared. I felt fearful in that it was as if I was watching, because in my mind's eye, I'm watching, oh, this is how they came in, and this is what they did to our people. As well as Ayikwe Arma's 2000 Seasons. And in that book, we see how Europeans invaded, but we also see the Arabs who came before the Europeans. And oftentimes we forget that part of our story. So the Sankofa, go back and fetch it. The importance of knowing our story, and a big part of the story is the Arab influence, which is still, there in the continent. So right now, the two major religions on the continent, Christianity and Islam, both not, and some people make an argument that there's a distinction, that there's an African Islam. I don't know our story that well, but I speak to the Islam brought to the continent and forced on the continent by Arabs. Okay, but I really like 2000 Seasons in that the ending with Things Fall Apart is the Euros have come and they've taken over. So we see the destruction. With 2000 Seasons at the end, we see young people who have been trained, who have done right and have been trained, and they are in the process of Sankofa. So it gives us great hope when we read 2000 Seasons, Ayikwe Arma. But also in terms of glimpsing the depth of the evil of Europeans, I'd recommend Brother Baruti's book, Kebuka, Remembering the Middle Passage Through the Eyes of Our Ancestors, where in a short book, Mama Marimba says it's the best book on what happened to us during the Middle Passage. He graphically explains the horrors committed against us, from being captured on the Kafalans, in the dungeons, and on the ships. It brings it to us coming to this land. but you really get to see, and in fact, the book is written from the perspective, try to put yourself in the place of our ancestors and the murders and the beatings and the maiming, the cutting off of body parts and the rapes of men and women, the filthy conditions on the ships. All of that speaks to just who these people are. And of course, knowing that, so it's clear we need to return to our African traditions. Just again, all of us probably won't repatriate, and even for those of us who do, the process has to start with a return to our traditions and our culture. Now, Sankofa is one of the Adinkra symbols of West Africa. One of them is the bird whose body is facing forward, feet and body forward, but its head is looking back. And the translation of the proverb, you know, with the Adinkra symbols, they all have proverbs that indicate the meaning. It is not forbidden to go back and retrieve from a forgotten past. So, you know, the common saying is go back and fetch it. But we look to the past in order to move forward, to know how to act today, but as well as to move forward. The Sankofa symbol, it's also that heart curvy symbol, like a heart with the curves on it. You see it in the wrought iron fences throughout the country. But the symbol means a respect for heritage, history, and wisdom of the elders, and a search for the positive aspects of the forgotten, ignored, concealed past to guide, and concealed past to guide the present and the future. So definitely that respect for the elders. And, you know, we don't want to go back and fetch everything. We want to go back and retrieve those things that were positive, those things that sustained us, those things that indicated our essence. Okay, some of our traditional ways that we need to go back and fetch. The traditional notion of marriage. We are being told by some people that marriage is European. Not true. Marriage existed before the existence of Europeans. Now, European, Western marriages are European, but that's very different from the institution of marriage, and it is an African institution. Marriage was so much a part of our traditional societies that was a part of manhood and womanhood. So you weren't considered to be a man or a woman until you married. Okay, and unlike in the West, it's you and me against the world. I can't live without you. We're in the clouds, all of that madness. The African marriage, sense of marriage is a union of two families. And the coming together of families. And it's not about coming together because of romantic love. It doesn't mean that you don't have feelings, romantic feelings there isn't a romantic attraction and you have those feelings. It just means that it's much more than that. And because we're family centered. So it's a joining of families, but also it's about bringing forth children, because in our traditions, marriage and parenthood are considered obligations. You know, not in the West, well, maybe I'll get married, maybe not. Maybe I'll have children, maybe not. It's considered an obligation. And we see the proverbs that speak to, you know, children are the creator's reward. And we know that children were loved and desired. And that's very African. And children are valued, not just to have children to work the fields or whatever. They were considered blessings, and it added to the family. Even the way we birthed our children, we need to return. And thankfully, many of our sisters are. I'm so thankful that my daughter Bob's daughter and my daughter, birthed her 6 children at home. And there's a movement, and it's been going on because I have a friend with 11 children, and so her children are much older than my daughter. So it's not something that's just going on. I started hearing about it in the 90s when we moved to Atlanta. Well, I'd heard of home births, and I had a nurse midwife, but you're still dealing with the traditional medical system versus a midwife, and even people having unassisted births. In general, those they've had midwives before, but traditionally, the babies are at home. And why should we do that? As I preach to the choir, of course, that's the natural way, and that babies are being born. Women are helping to bring forth these babies versus how many of us have been born in cold, sterile hospital rooms with a white male or even a black male delivering the baby on your back, working against nature of the baby, the gravity, squatting, and the baby being able to slide and be caught. Just the madness of all of that. But that's Euro culture, because my mother's generation, they were birthed at home by Black midwives. Then Euros wanted to get the money for that. And then now, so that was bad enough, just babies being born naturally in the hospitals. I know definitely in the 80s, the cesarean sections, which brings so much more money, and it's convenient for the doctors to not have to come when you're in labor to schedule a time to bring the baby. And what that does to the baby, we don't know, because nature allows the baby to determine when he or she is ready to come if there's not physical distress to the mother or the baby. But that's a part of the culture that we live in. And just quickly, natural births. Babies receive the bacteria when they're passing through the womb that helps build the healthy bacteria that helps them with their immune system, as well as the traditional breastfeeding. That's more common in our community, but there's still, probably the majority of us are still using bottles to feed our baby. That's the madness of this culture. It's very anti-nature, and very much so when there's money to be made. And it doesn't matter at what cost it is to the people involved. With our children, divination was done during pregnancy so that we would know why the child was coming, and we would be able to assist the child in whatever his or her needs in terms of fulfilling their destiny. And choosing meaningful names, not names that sound cute, not straight up Euro names, but then made up names that don't have a meaning, but meaningful names, because every time your spirit hears your name, you're reminded of your purpose. You're reminded of the meaning of that name. Our children had rites of passage programs, and they were being trained as in girls trained into womanhood, for our sons trained into manhood. We taught our children through Proverbs, and that's the wisdom. And as I was saying, that was my experience growing up, small town Mississippi, and I'm sure it wasn't limited in the South, because when we migrated north, we took with us the things that we had learned, but that was very much a part of our culture. We were very communal people. That's very much a part of who we are. So again, not the individual, the focus is on the group and the village. And a couple of recent things I've learned as a part of that, in terms of healing, it would be done in a group setting. So an initiated priest, I hate that word, in the Akan tradition told me that when he goes home and people seek divination, unlike in the West, you want privacy, that at home, it's done in the village and everybody hears. Now, that's because there is village concern, not village nosiness and gossip, that if a member of the village is sick, it is a community obligation that you all work together in order to help the family member who's sick be healed. And I recently read a Facebook post that speaks to our communal nature, that you, when a person does wrong, that instead of like the West, where you want to be punitive and just punish, not to say that there should be consequences to be inappropriate behavior, because that's how we learn that the behavior is inappropriate. But, and I didn't remember what group of people, but this is still an African notion, that that person is called into the middle of a circle of the village. Everybody is in a big circle. And instead of everybody criticizing or throwing stones at the person who has done wrong, everyone, one by one, indicates the good that the person has done, to allow them to know that they have worth and value, that because of their wrongdoing, we are not ostracizing you. We're reminding you who you are so that you can come back to it. And okay, I really, if there are questions, we will have Q&A at the end, and I definitely have problems trying to read the questions and focus. So, but do know, so any questions, I definitely, we will allow time at the end. Mama Marimba Ani, who Baruti and I are blessed to know and have her in our village, where we are part of her village, says our culture is our immune system. And so you can understand why we are so sick generally, mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally, because we're not connected to our culture, and we're practicing European culture, which is antithetical to who we are, to our essence, to our asili. So in the same way now with this virus going on, or whatever it is, what they're calling COVID-19, people are more focused on their physical immune systems, but we need to know that we also need a spiritual, mental, and emotional immune system, and our immune system needs to be strong. So everybody has an immune system, but it can be very weakened. And then it is not, when it is in a weak state, it is unable to fight off disease, viruses, harmful bacteria. Okay, so in order to strengthen our immune system, we have to know our culture. So I just talked about some of our traditions, but additionally, we are very spiritual people. And for us, there's a belief in the creator. And as one of my Ifa friends tells me, it is not equivalent to the way God is thought of in Christianity, but a force, a creative force. The deities, for the Akan people who we study, they're called the Abasum, the Ifa, people call them Orisha, the Yoruba. But part of the spiritual realm, we recognize our honored ancestors, not just our ancestors, because some of our family members died very much having been overtaken by the Euro insanity. And if in this life, because of that, they inflicted that madness onto our people, those are not names that we want to honor at all. So we only call upon our honored ancestors. But doing and daily, one of the first things you did after washing would be a libation, and that you would call on your ancestors. Divination, seeking spiritual guidance. And we know we have people, a part of our culture, people who are trained to learn how to access the spiritual realm. And they're able then to see, to divine, to see into the other realm, to assist us in this physical realm. And today, that's something, if we're Sankofa, go back and fetch it. Thankfully, for those of us in many areas of the country, we have access to that. However, just a caveat, little warning, always be mindful. I wouldn't suggest you get divination from someone you don't know. You want personal recommendations that this is somebody who's of good character, knows what they're doing, and who you can trust to go to. A retriever of our languages. You know, there are things that were taken from us that, and part of the whole Sankofa movement is about reclaiming that which was taken. So our languages were stolen. You know, they had to prevent us from being able to communicate among ourselves, where they couldn't understand what we're doing. But also a part of oppression and domination is I give you a name, I name you, and you speak the language that I speak. But we have the opportunity to retrieve that. And it's not something that has to be done overnight. But I will tell you, with your children, I have taken a few tree lessons, and I am in no way fluent, but what I've learned, I'm teaching the children, and they pick up languages quickly, very quickly. So if you have children, the time to teach them African languages is when they're young. And of course, if that vote was missed, hey, like I was, 40s, close to 40, in my 40s. We have to reclaim our languages. That's part of Sankofa. And something I learned when you are learning a language, I learned this even when I was learning Euro French in college. When you learn a language, you learn about the culture. They go hand in hand. So, and part of reclaiming our culture. So as you learn the language, you're not just learning to speak, but you're learning the culture as well. Proverbs, I think I already mentioned the importance of Proverbs, very important in our culture. A respect for nature. You know, even when a tree was needed to be cut down, you just don't cut down the tree, you ask for permission. There was a prayer, some ritual done, because we respect all living things, okay? Unless they are forces of evil, we're talking about Euros, then that's a different story. But so, and you know, some people argue, are they human? So, but I speak generally. I already mentioned the family, clan, the village, the African rhythm, which is being used against us in terms of the negative music, the negative Black music that pulls us, draws us in through our rhythm, through the drums, and even our dances. And it's interesting how we will pick and choose aspects of African culture that suits us. So I recently heard twerking is an African dance. Okay, that could be true, but the point of it was not how it's being done in this culture. So in the same way that I recently posted a friend's post on covering up. He happens to be Moorish. So the picture of the sister, she's covered up in Muslim garb. That wasn't the point, my point of sharing that post. It's the point that article spoke to, valuable things are covered. Was it gold, diamonds, pearls? That if you see yourself as valuable, you don't need to let it all hang out. But in the same way, people can bring up, the brother brought up, well, in the village, you know, the sisters went around topless. Yes, they did, because that was a culture where breasts were not seen as sex objects. They were understood to be mammary glands intended to feed the babies. And so men could see breasts without salivating or without feeling the need to try to put their hands on it, grab, whatever. So that's an inappropriate point for, are you suggesting that we do that in this culture? Now we're doing that, but we're not doing that as just being natural. Women are showing their breasts to be sexy. And of course, look that up, relating to sex. So if that's how you dress all the time, then when men see you, they think of sex. And I was just thinking about that notion. So if a woman who has sons dresses sexy, then when your sons look at you, they can think of sex, because that's what the dress is supposed to do. But, which was my next point, clothing, and the way everything, when you reclaim, you're returning to your culture, are the way we dress traditionally is a part of our culture. Loose fitting, not always loose fitting, because of course the lapas aren't loose fitting, but cotton and cool and colorful and things that speak to our culture. And still today, even though I've seen this for many years of my life, I still cringe when I see African leaders in Western suits. And when I see images of the motherland, where I will see the sisters oftentimes wearing something African, but then the men are in Euro garb. But I'm well aware that in the cities, the places where we have been truly colonized, that we see versions of what's going on here. There's a cable station, Afro, and it just shows African movies. And for the most part, if they weren't speaking, they look just like us, the weaves, the wigs, the tight clothes, all of that. They're wearing it, you know, the Western clothes, the Western thinking, which will be a point that I make today, is not just Africans in the diaspora who need to return. We need continental Africans whose minds have been colonized to also return to the traditions. But very much a respect for elders, represented, knowing that the elders, and I guess you're not elders just based on your age, but those who have led a righteous life, who have some wisdom and knowledge that they can share, they should be respected. And traditionally, men respected women. But I added to that, you know what? They respect, that was a part of our culture, but part of our culture is women behaved respectfully. They showed self-respect. And so vice versa, women respected our men, because we see a disrespect that's flowing both ways. And of course, Europeans are very much a part of that. They have pitted us against each other. And in the 80s, I got to see that well, being an English major, when Black women writers were being attacked by Black men, but that's because whites were putting Black women writers up, and especially those who depicted Black men negatively or who were promoting lesbianism. They were being advanced, because when you're doing mainstream publishing, somebody has to pay and support that. You know, it's not like Baruti, you write your own book, you're being totally independent. But anyway, men respected themselves. So when we look at each other today, when we are lost in this Euro madness, it makes it difficult for us to respect each other, because we're often not showing self-respect. But these, as part of our return, we know our relationships, our individual healing will help to heal our relationships as well, our complementary relationships, male, female, as well as our family relationships. A beautiful thing about African culture, when I look at, I've had continental friends, not just past tense, I have continental friends, but over the years, I've noticed how they call everyone auntie and uncle and sister and brother. And I came to find out these are not their literal aunts, uncles. These are family members, and that the love and so is so strong that they are seen in that manner. And even in learning tree, the part that I do know, Nua, Inria means siblings, but it also means peers. So even the language, speaks to um, the importance of family, and how, even in our community, one way we're returning when we refer to all women who have children as mama, and all the men who have children as baba or iya, whatever term, whichever language we're using. Ina and aja. Ina, like in Iniya, is mother, and tree, aja is father. Family. There's a beautiful proverb about family. Life is war, family is the army. And life is definitely war. It's a series of challenges and battles, and it makes the world of difference when we have family support. And something I've learned, even though I'm from a very large biological family, my mother had 19 siblings, so I have over 100 first cousins, over 100 second cousins, many of whom I've never met. But as large as growing up, I thought, well, other people are nice, but, I have family. So I really didn't have friends. I had schoolmates growing up because I had cousins, lived right next door, I had sisters, brothers, cousins, and I was kind of in that biological family world. But I found, as I found the African way, that I have many non-blood, but they're my blood through Africa, but we don't share DNA in terms of our parents, but who also feel like family. But that's a part of that community and village as well. Always like, when I have an opportunity to speak, to recommend certain works. Mama Maremba Ani has an article on To Be an African Woman, because part of our Sankofan movement, we want to be like traditional African women. That's in her collection of essays called To Be African. If you can find that book, To Be African, it has a long subtitle, but Mama Rembani is one of the 3 editors. Clenora Hudson Wings has a book called Africana Womanism, and she also talks about traditional characteristics of women. But that book is very good because she critiques feminism. And that's one of the European characteristics that Black women are getting sucked up into, a hatred of men. And this is a white women's movement where they hate their men, and rightfully so, but that's their personal problems. It doesn't have anything to do with us. The things that our men are doing to us, and we do things to them as well. We both sides are acting because of our mental side, this European culture. And of course, Sacred Woman is it's a book that is focused on our healing physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally. Definitely a book. And there are Sacred Women's Circles, which is beautiful, that she trains women to be sacred women ambassadors, and they start circles and circles, because our healing is definitely needed in that way. Where was my, I had my list of here it is. Quickly, some things Mama Maremba mentions in her essay on To Be African. She also talks about the stages of African womanhood, but we're life affirming, in partnership with an African man, political organizer, part of a collective. We exert influence. We speak for the ancestors. We're an advocate of Africa. We're a mother who does whatever is necessary to protect her child. We teach. We are healers. and I added mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally. We represent the continuity of African people. We represent the stability of the African family. We maintain and pass on African culture. We organize and direct the African market, enabling our people to understand the spirit of economic exchange and distribution of our resources. A scientist of the sacred, and I interpret that as we study nature to learn. We're spiritual leaders, intellectuals, and divine. And for our brothers, so you also want to return to traditional African manhood roles, the role as warrior, the Ankabin symbol. When the war horn sounds, we see who the men are. That's my paraphrase. I forgot to get the exact translation. But for African men, they were heterosexual husbands. We already talked about that. That was an obligation. Fathers to all of their children. And oftentimes I think we focus on sons need their fathers, daughters need their fathers as well. Fathers teach their sons how to become men, but they also represent the model for our daughters as to what a husband should do, what he should be about, what kind of father he should be. The disciplinary, in many families, the father is the disciplinarian, and this isn't a discussion on corporal punishment. With little children, daddy's frown, daddy's voice, any increase in volume, little children get in check, and it's just a difference. And it's funny, I see that here with our students before we had to go online, on the times that Baba had to run errands, and Baba loves his music. So when he comes back, we can hear him, we can hear the music, and he's parking. And the children who have been playful and look antsy when daddy's away, when they hear daddy drive up, they just turn in little angels. Okay, but fathers have that role, providers, protectors. Okay, and I recommend Brother Baruti's book, Asafo, Warrior's Guide to Manhood. Our children, so I'm throwing some recommendations in as we go. Dr. Laila Africa has a book called, which I didn't always know about, Handbook for Raising Black Children, and it's extensive. Mama Sobanfu Somé has a book called Welcoming Spirit Home. And I have to caution you with Mama Sobanfu. So I'm recommending this book in particular. And when people, just a quick reminder, always be able to separate good information from the speaker. So for example, some people don't celebrate Kwanzaa because of Karenga's history. Now, if you're able to, Kwanzaa for me is something positive. The principles of Kwanzaa and Nguzo Saba, those are positive things that are helpful, but I can celebrate Kwanzaa without celebrating Karenga or putting him on a pedestal. But the book is good for children. She has essays or chapters on the birthing traditionally, naming ceremonies, miscarriage, which I'm learning, and it's a growing larger number of women who have miscarriages and how devastating that could be, but there are rituals and a discussion of it to help women. But her book, The Spirit of Intimacy, is a good book, but the chapter on, what is it called, Baba? So Banfu's, the chapter suggesting homosexuality. It's chapter 13. You remember the name of it? Okay, but because she did not speak English well, because a couple of my mama friends, when they had an opportunity to see her speak elsewhere, when they questioned her on that, that's not what she was trying to say. But when you have somebody, that's why Baba has been reluctant. People want to translate his books. You need to know who is translating. So she and her husband, she's she is in the ancestral realm now, and I think she overall has, you know, was doing good. But you deal with Euros, you get caught up in their madness. So they use a part of the African culture to suggest that that was homosexuality versus people who had spiritual gifts and they lived outside of the village. But it's chapter 13. Is it the gatekeepers? Gate. That's the name of the book. But never mind, I'm spending too much time on that. Okay. But Madasi, sweetie. But anyway, so be mindful when you read. So, and even when you hear a name, okay, listen carefully for the name of the book. But with anything that we read, always use our African intelligence, because these Euros have Black people doing research where they're putting homosexuality, it came out of Africa. Now, generally, they don't want to credit anything for Africa. According to them, Kemet, which they're now calling Egypt, is not a part of Africa. But anything negative, they want to put it in Africa. So to say it's been around forever, so you can't, Black people, you can't say something is wrong with it. But that's where you have to use homosexuality doesn't fit into child-centered society and life-centered, because homosexuals can't produce life. But okay, rites of passage programs, caution, choose carefully. I would not trust my child with somebody I don't know well, and that I feel 100% comfortable with my child being around that person. Now, there are certain rites of passage programs that don't go deep, where say your sons would be, and that, I mean, be wary in terms of your daughters as well, because of all the lesbians. It's not just boys who get molested, but unless it's just a program where you can sit there, or they're never alone with the men. They're in this library, they're in this space, and they get lectures. But other than that, in these big brothers, whatever, we have to be very careful. We're in a sick society, and we have to protect our children at all costs. But rites of passage programs are good if you can find a good one. And in many cases, you may have to establish one yourself and find good people to assist you. Okay, our roles of children, you know, traditionally the older children were responsible for the younger children. Something beautiful about African culture, where when a baby is born, how the baby is passed around to the different mamas. And so the baby is nursing each mama, going from breast to breast, you know, that notion of family. So even from birth, this child is then being physically connected to the mamas. Okay, where am I on time? All right. Re-Africanization. The Okotos have a book called The Sankofan Movement, subtitled Re-Africanization and the Reality of War. I call it a Bible. It's to re-Africanizing. It is not currently in print. It's supposed to be reprinted, but if you're able to find a used copy, speaks to family, relationships, community. But I also recommend a book that is in print and that actually helps sell. It's on conflict resolution. It is very difficult. We find it as African people in this society, our relationships, it's so difficult for us to maintain relationships because we don't have healthy ways of resolving conflict. So things are well, when a conflict arises, if we don't have a way of dealing with that, relationships end. And that book is by Baba Sanyika and Yizwe, and it's called Lubrication for Liberation, Can Black People Get Along? It's a $10 book, a little book that gives you step-by-step ways of resolving African conflict among us. Because if we can't resolve conflicts, then if we have no relationships, we can't have a nation if we're trying to return. African culture, you know, the ankh represents life, the womb, the mother, the phallus, the father, the arms, the children. The importance of the creator, the jinyame is a symbol, except the creator, meaning none is greater than the creator. African-centered education is a major way of retrieving what is lost. The miseducation that we're all aware of our children experience in public schools or high-priced private schools, if the school isn't African-centered. And something we learned from personal experience, even if a school calls itself African-centered, you need a list of questions. Exactly what does that mean? Because it means different things for different people. So we want to be very selective in choosing programs for our children. Homeschooling is excellent if you are able to do it. And in that way, you absolutely get to determine what your child is learning. And you can bring in tutors if needed for academic subjects, and even African cultural subjects. You get to dictate all of it. And looking at our programs, which we deal with children who are being homeschooled, and some of them are here full time and we're their tutors. We teach all the subjects. We have part-timers who come for particular subjects, but parents are having say and control in how their children are being educated. And here we are educating, not just schooling. In public and private schools, it's about schooling, the academic subjects. Of course, it's about enculturation as well. So the Euro culture is a part of that, you know, from the Pledge of Allegiance to the lies and the social studies books and all of that. But of course, African-centered education, we learn about the culture, we introduce language and even terms that we only know some terms. So whatever Kiswahili we know, whatever Yoruba we know, we introduce to the children. It's about teaching them manhood, womanhood, character development, practical life skills when they were physically here, and hopefully that will be returning at some point. Actually learning gardening, whatever Baruti, whatever he was repairing, building, they've assisted with different projects to get life skills installed, or just observing if they need to be touching power tools or whatever, but learning those skills. And of course, proverbs. At one point, we had a daily proverb in which I'm trying to return to that. But the education of our children, and let me just say, it's not just our children, because we've been miseducated and we continue to be miseducated through the culture. So we all, and we've had, Baba has done many classes for adults, and we've done some joint classes because we all are in that process, in the same way that we're still reading and attending lectures, listening to lectures. Okay, healing. I've already said that healing needs to be mental, physical, spiritual, emotional, in every way. You know, and in African culture, healing is holistic, that we recognize whatever physical ailments we have, those ailments have spiritual components. So for women, if we're having breast health issues, for example, that's suggesting the spiritual component of that is there's an issue with the children, or it could be with your mother, but something mother-child relationships. Okay, but holistic, you deal with the whole body. What's going on in your mind, your emotions. It's not just what are your symptoms, which is done in the West, where, you know, allopathic Western medicine is about giving you prescriptions, surgery. You treat the symptoms, you cause, in many cases, worse side effects than the symptoms that one is dealing with. Of course, you know, Dr. Africa, Laila Africa, Queen Afua have their books on healing. And I think we all should have one or more of their books in our homes. You know, I think most of us are paying attention to our health, and it's not some people get extreme on, you have to be vegetarian or vegan. It's about being healthy now, and I don't even entertain those things, but you know, you can be vegetarian and just eat junk food 24/7. It just means that you're not eating meat. Okay, then you can be vegan and go to the extreme and it becomes your religion. And okay, but eating organic and also listening to your own body. But we need physical healing to be healthy enough to do the work of re-Africanization, to live long enough for those who want to actually repatriate to be able to do so. Traditionally, walking and doing chores. So we didn't have to go to fitness classes and do things. Just in the course of a day, we got our physical activity, we got the sun. Many health problems in this country are a result of vitamin D deficiency. And you can, if you work inside, you have to, and if you work in your home, it's even more difficult. You have to make a conscientious effort to go out and get the fresh air and sun, but things that are needed. We know drinking water, which many health problems in this country are dehydration at the result. The herbs that we need to be learning about and growing ourselves, because Europeans are trying to get rid of them as options for us, because people are turning to herbs versus pharmaceuticals. They're losing money, or take control of that, and they are so expensive. Already mentioned with divination, also when someone was physically ill traditionally, you can find out, well, what's spiritually going on, or what herbs would be good. We need to detox, because you can't get around the constant chemicals, and you can't hide from it in your home, outside your home. So regular detoxing. But another major issue in our physical health is nutritional deficiencies. There's a book by a doctor who is not Black, but it's a good book focused on why we need to detox, ways of detoxing, and the nutritional deficiencies that we're dealing with. It's called Detoxify or Die. Okay, and of course, what helps us physically, mentally, spiritually, all of that. Yoga, which we know started in Africa, but Qigong, Tai Chi, the breathing, you know, in many cases, when we stress, and African people stay stressed, if we're not breathing properly, that's your essence of life. So even practicing correct breathing helps us with our health. Our mental health. So we have the scholars that you already know, Nana Bobby E. Wright's book, Menticide and a Psychopathic Personality. And that helps us with our mental clarity. If we understand that Europeans are psychopaths, then everything else makes sense. So you wouldn't try to reason with a psychopath or think, well, some psychopaths are good. No, you would be clear. But menticide, the death of our African mind. So when we're acting like Euros, we're not acting out of our African minds. Of course, everybody knows Nana Amos Wilson, Nana Colby Cambone, Nana Frances Cress Welsing, Dr. George DeGride, something that's still kind of relatively new, but post-traumatic slave syndrome. But the trauma that we're experiencing, and studies are showing how in our DNA, you can see trauma being passed down. And that's a major it's a major health issue we have. And all of the healing things that we do would help us in that regard. We have to limit Western media, because it's just bringing in the garbage. Recognizing our menticide, things that we're doing that are not African, and our healing process will be lifelong. So it's not like, okay, you do it for 10 years and you're good. It's going to be lifelong, because as again, some of this madness has been passed down in our DNA. So the studying and working, the self-healing and being a part of healing circles, all of that will be lifelong. Spiritual healing, 42 Laws of Ma'at lays it out for us. It's a code of conduct, how we should treat ourselves, including our sexual behavior, speaks against sodomy, adultery, abusing your sexuality, how to treat others, you know, the concern for the feeling of others. Now, Baruti makes a good point in his book, Iwa, A Warrior's Character, where he discusses the oracles of Ma'at and indicating, no, this is how we treat African people and people who abide, have our same morals. You can't treat Europeans. So you can, if somebody is trying to kill you, you can't say, well, the laws of Ma'at say I cannot kill. You defend yourself. That's natural. But so we should definitely study them, how to read. It teaches us a respect of nature, of the spiritual realm. I absolutely recommend the Ifa spiritual text. It's called Odu Ifa, The Ethical Teachings, translated and commentary by Karenga. Again, Karenga has the issues, but he's presenting, he did not write the Odu Ifa, okay? He translated, and of course, was working with Babalawo scholars in that tradition. But it's an excellent book. I think we all should have it. Of course, Mama Marimba, Our Knees, Let the Circle Be Unbroken is a general discussion of the importance of African spirituality. Okay, let's see. And when we know with Ma'at generally, always focus for African people, truth, justice, order, balance, harmony, righteousness, and reciprocity. If we incorporate those things, all personally, our relationships, everything would improve. Okay, libations. And I think I already mentioned that's something that we did daily, you know, after you washed in the morning and you're calling on the ancestors. I know we teach our students here one that I learned in Tree, which is nice. Someone has made the point. If we do a libation in English, will our ancestors who didn't speak English, hopefully because it's something spiritual, so I definitely hope and pray that our ancestors who did not speak English understand us. But it is beautiful, and it is Sankofan to do a libation in Tree, but like to make some points. First, the creator is acknowledged. And in what I was taught, part of the libation says, we show you water, but we don't give you water. The logic is the creator made water, so we don't give water to the creator. But Asasi Ya, Mother Earth, we pour water. We call upon Asasi Ya. We call upon the deities in Tree. They're called the Abasun, the Orisha for the Yoruba, and other names in other African spiritual traditions. We call upon in Tree the Nananom and Samanfo. These are honored ancestors. I hate to be in an African program when Michael Jackson's name is called. Now, he was generous, I get, but he was very confused. I would never call on his name. If you're calling on ancestors who need prayer, who need to be healed, he would be on the list. But we should be calling on the names of honored ancestors. And then we call upon them, we pour water to them, and we ask for their blessings. We ask them to be with us, for their presence. In the libation that I learned, which in Tree we called Empire, there is a curse after the request for blessings. And it's Oja and She, Oja and She, Oja and She. A bibifo, a tamfo, dreadebe. It's fire burn, fire burn, fire burn, the enemies of African people utterly. And that's important because one of our proverbs speaks to one does not bless one's enemies. So if you're doing your libation daily, and I try morning and night, so you can be putting that curse out, because the oracles of Ma'at tell us, I will not utter curses except against evil. So if people are, our enemies are evil, so we can curse them. But the closing of the libation is a thank you. So we've asked for your assistance, but we don't close without giving thanks for that. Okay, 5 minutes. I want to talk about the return and repatriation. So as I said earlier, we all need to return mentally, physically, spiritually, well, mentally, spiritually, emotionally. For those of us who want to repatriate, let's be in the process of healing versus taking additional madness. You know, we've had the Back to Africa movement before, and you had Blacks from this country to go to Liberia, Sierra Leone, and take European culture and go in and take leadership roles. So that's not what repatriation is about. So we all need to return mentally, spiritually, and emotionally, as I started by saying, that's what the Garveys did. We need that so that for those who want to repatriate, that we're not taking Euro sickness with us. There's enough already there. Haven't been fortunate to visit yet, but I'm told from friends who live there currently, who have visited there. You see, it's a different version of what you see here. So, but if you also, let me go down my list because I'm running out of time, so won't mention those things. I do want to mention Rabbit Proof Fence. It's a movie, and it's great for children, our children to watch. Even though it's not about African people, it's about three indigenous girls who are taken by the Australian government, who were snatched away and put in one of the Euro schools. And the oldest of the three girls makes it. Oh, and Sister Ray has a picture of the DVD up on the screen. It's definitely recommended. It's inspiring to me as an adult. But they walked, and I don't know, this long, extremely long distance, 1,000 miles, Madasi, in order to return home. And unfortunately, one of the girls didn't make it. And that's part of the story too. As we return home, many of our people aren't going to make it, but you can't stop and die. You have to, even through your tears, you have to continue to re-Africanize and continue to return home. Of course, the movie Sankofan speaks to, and we get a visual image again of the depravity of Europeans and how we can get lost. Shola is lost in that madness and has to, return to her African self. Quilombo is an excellent movie because that's even during our enslavement, when we couldn't get home, we separated ourselves from the madness. Definitely something for us to be knowledgeable of. And we practice our African traditions away from the Euro madness. Okay, for some notes, and this is based on having friends who have repatriated. I already said you need to be in the healing process. And I'm not saying you have to heal yourself, then nobody could repatriate, because that's going to be a lifelong process. But be in that healing process. Bring something. Don't come like Europeans to exploit and be parasites. You just go on to get rich off of Africa. What are you bringing to the table? Your talents, your skills, resources. Visit a place before moving there, because it's going to be challenging. We have this glorious idea and we look for a utopia. It's not a utopia. It's a colonialism. Our colonization is another form of our enslavement. So you see Euroculture dominating. But it might be helpful if you also choose carefully where you would like to relocate. In places where there is a diasporan community, that's very helpful to people, because you have a village already there that you can more easily incorporate into. But also be prepared to not be welcomed. And that's hurtful, because we have this notion, they welcome home. And we've seen the movies in cases where that has happened, but that may happen more when you're visiting than you're moving there. But, we need to be prepared. And of course, we need to learn the language and the culture of a place that we're moving to. So repatriation definitely is a major goal, but all of that is a process. Oh, great. Okay. So we have 15 minutes for question and answers. Okay. So, okay. Any question? I don't know if there were questions that had been typed in. Okay, so I see other people already knew about Sobanfu's, the spirit of intimacy. So how do I see that? Okay. Can you post the reading list? Oh, okay, I do see a question. So I can do that. I can post it on my Facebook page later, but someone specifically asked about the book on conflict resolution, and Sister Ray has it on the screen. It's called The African Personality. And I'm so glad you put it up there because I left that part of the title off. Lubrication for Liberation. And I don't think you can order it online. Baba Sanyika is a personal friend of ours. And I guess when I know he sells them when he's at events, if you can order them through him, or you can order copies through us. And so let me just remind people came in late. We do have a few copies. Baba just told me we have a few copies of that left. But you can contact me through my Facebook page, through Messenger, through my email, which is better. And it's simple, my name, Baruti@yahoo.com. If anyone wants to support Ankabin Institute, our African Center homeschool program in its 22nd year, you can send donations to our PayPal account, which is my contact email address, yabaruti@yahoo.com, or our Cash App, $ Ya M as in man, Baruti. So just an M in the middle of Ya Baruti with the $. Okay, so, but I can tell you, so Mom, okay, and Mama Adenike, you are on Facebook. And Mama, can you please send me a message? Because I have like a million notes to remind me to put the reading list up. But were there other questions, or I can, okay, I have the choir agreeing with me, whites are psychopaths, okay. Okay, agreement on the book, the spirit of intimacy. Okay, so Sister Tree, what was the last book? Africans Before Sacred Woman. Oh, Before Sacred Woman, Sister Tria, Africana with the C, Womanism. And that's by Clenora, that's CLENORA, last name Hudson, like the river, hyphen, oh, now Clenora Hudson, Weems, Madasi. Compliments come in handy. Weems, WEEMS. Okay. Now, one of the books, because everybody may not be on Facebook, is Re-Africanization and the Reality of War. And that's by the author's last name is a husband and wife, last name Akoto, AKOTO. And he's Ajay, is Kwame Ajay Akoto. But I think if you type in last name Akoto, but it's Re-African, pardon me, the Sankofa Movement is the main title. The Sankofa Movement, subtitle, Re-Africanization and the Reality of War. Okay. Birth names. Okay, the agreement on the birth names. So, Sister Ray, what, you have a spelling, was that something I said? Can, can you unmute, can somebody unmute Sister Ray? What?
The Ekinsentaye is what you were. You can't hear me?
I can hear you now.
Oh, okay. When you were explaining about how we come into the marketplace and being given our divinations at birth, so before our feet hit the floor, we are told, or it is divined, what our purpose is. That's the Ekinsentaye. So when you were speaking about it, that's the name of it in Yoruba, Ekinsentaye.
Oh, give thanks. And I need to, Mama, can you send that to me in text or something? Give thanks, Mama Ray. Okay, I think that's as far up as I can go. And okay, we have a few minutes. Any other questions? Oh, okay, no, I haven't gone up all the way. Yes.
This is the L family in Tampa.
Greatest family. How are you?
How you doing?
Mama and the children earlier.
Oh man, you said a lot today that I didn't even know. So this is very
thanks.
Yes. And so they was listening, and you like solidify what we be saying, and now they can hear it for themselves.
And and we always say that because your children think you're crazy, right? They think it's just you off on the deep end. And that's why it makes the importance of having a village, so
that's
that
right.
they know there are other people who think like you. But our children today are able to witness. They are living in this pandemic and all of this madness. Our children who have doubted us are of a certain age, they are able to see, oh, maybe they weren't crazy. And in fact, our family members, right, who used to laugh at us and call us crazy, so what do you think is really going on? And you're finding that. But it is important.
Yes, it is.
The importance of the village.
Because even when I was growing up, and when you're sitting at a Thanksgiving dinner or just dinner itself, and at the time I was learning about the Nation of Islam, and it was saying about how nasty hog is. And everything they cook is with hog. So then that's the starting of the separation. So I'm glad they get it early.
Oh, absolutely. And that makes a difference. I found at least there's a formula, and it doesn't mean, just like if you put all the ingredients in a cake, whatever you're baking, it may not turn out perfectly, but if you don't put those elements in, you already know it won't.
That's right.
As parents, it's our job to do everything that we can to re-Africanize our children, knowing that regardless of the outcome, you've done your part, and that's all we can do our part to the best of our ability, because for all of us, it's a daily choice to re-Africanize, and we have to do it. But at minimum, like at Sankofan, we have many children who have no interest over the years, who had no interest in being African, and many times in the initial years, the parents weren't interested. They were looking a place, oh, you all Black, you love the children, you can help them, maybe you can help discipline them, but they weren't looking for the re-Africanization piece.
Right.
We were able to plant the seeds. And with those seeds, if those young people ever shoot, what you have heard, you cannot unhear. And then when they're at Sankofan every day, they're hearing Africa, Africa, Africa. And it's there for them if they ever decide. So in fact, we're like, it's interesting now. We're hearing from former students, even going back to college, who are coming back after all these years who, you know, kind of thought we were on the deep end as well, or, you know, they don't need all of that. You've been a little extreme, and they're coming back. So, you know, we do that with our children as well, our biological children and the children.
And it was so great about it, when I was over in like the Pacific Ocean, Oceanica, going by certain countries like Melanesia, New Guinea, etc., and I'm seeing people darker than me.
Yeah.
They got the same issues with Christian insanity, all of that on colonialism. So just knowing that and understanding all over, from Russia, nobody really has delved into all the melanated people in Russia.
Mm-hmm.
And then even before World War II, all the mass killings was mostly melanated people in Russia. So it's a lot of our story that we have to learn. It's so vast.
Absolutely. And one thing I can say, and I'm going to try to ask this brother who asked the question, but it's impossible for us to learn it all. And what we need is a general clarity. And as we learn more, but we can get overwhelmed if we try to learn every part of the story. So that's not to discourage us. We need to continue to read and study. But because we have people who know the story, Henry Louis Gates. So he knows information, but he has no clarity, you know. No. We need to go for clarity and read and study as we go, but not be overwhelmed with all the details. But once we just recognize they're psychopaths. So
that's right.
Along with being a psychopath, we're good. We don't have to know all of the details, but I don't know if this is a sister or a brother. Alita Toure, are you still in the meeting room?
Yes, I'm still here.
Could you please, what was I discussing at that time?
I think someone else gave me the title of it. I was asking about a book that you had. Let me see what it was.
Oh, give thanks, but someone did give you the title.
Yes, someone did. Thank you.
Give thanks. And you know, that's the village. Give thanks. And I'm trying to scroll up to see were there other questions as we're down to just a few minutes. Okay, other people agree with me with 2,000 seasons. Let's see. Oh, okay. Someone said I'm not the oldest in the room. Yeah. Oh, but I'm cool with being the oldest in the room because I'm thankful to be 58 years old. But I'm glad that there were other elders in training like myself in the room. All right. I think I didn't see any other questions. So if you're on Facebook, Mama Adenike is going to remind me to post a reading list. And oh, wait a minute, there are other messages, but okay. I'm being, okay. Oh, so I think this should be last point. I hate the word priest. Try to use the term of the tradition. So with, in the Akana tradition, it's Okamfo. You know, in the Yoruba tradition is Babalawo, and is it Iya, Babalawo, the term for the female? Sister Ray, what's the term for the males are Babalawos? Do you know, Mama? Okay, but we need to learn the African terms for that. You know, words are power. Okay, and I've been warned, I'm running out of time here, but I think from what I see, I answered the questions. And I want to say Madasi Pa to all of you. You know, it's early on a Saturday morning now, because if I wasn't on this program, I would be chilling somewhere. So I definitely appreciate those of you who came today. I appreciate Brother Alias, Brother Bomani, and United Front. And hey, give thanks, close by saying we give thanks to Nana Marcus Garvey, and also acknowledge Nana Amy Jacques Garvey as well. And RBG, the Red, Black, and Green, 100 years, yay, yay. I'll close by saying Abibi Fahodie, African Liberation and Sovereignty. Ashe.
Family, unmute it and make some noise. Yeah. Unmute and make some noise. Yeah.
Yay! Baby to me.
Thanks. Madasi Pa.
Madasi.
Madasi,
Hey,
very powerful.
Otupe. Dua.
Family, we had a speaker that was rescheduled yesterday till today. So we will have Field African Radio and Brother Ola going at the same time at 11:45. I'm gonna go ahead and go into Field African Radio. I'm gonna play some stuff. Mama Ya, I want you to check your messages. There's a gift in there for you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Give thanks. Madasi Pa, Santi Sana, everybody. Tupe, Abibi Fahodie.
Anna.
Doc Shotgun. Buck front. Yeah. Shot. Intro to O. Yeah. And my dude that Timbuktu the Ave. For new, renew your passion. Shun the condition. And not the who, what, when, where, and you are from. At last. Put the higher